freaking out, man. I'm freaking out. It's Nom. It's coming back. Flashbacks, man. Nom. I can still see the explosions.
You know, some people
I
get
just did
super
it on the
offended about
spot.
that.
I was like, oh, I should do that. Just freak out like a Nom vet.
That must be fucking grim, right?
Mm-hmm.
That
And they
must
got
actually
treated like
the,
shit. Yeah.
yeah, that's the sad part about it as well, and they get treated like garbage then on top of everything. Before we get into all that though, I just want a quick shout out to Shudder, AIM Publicity, and Acorn Media International for the release of the newest VHS movie, which is VHS Halloween. They sent me the Blu-ray a couple of weeks ago. It is out now on Blu-ray, DVD, and digital as of February 9th.
I gotta get into those VHS.
Yeah, they're quite good.
I want to watch the first one, then start from there, and I couldn't find it. I could find a bunch of other ones, but that was free at least on I couldn't find the first one.
The first one's gotten super. Yeah, I like the first one a lot. Yeah, experience spooky season again and again in this latest incarnation of the VHS horror anthology series, set to arrive for its 8th chilling outing, VHS Halloween. The latest haunting features 5 new spine-chilling segments and set to delight and disgust horror junkies when it arrives on Blu-ray, DVD, and digital on February 9th, 2026, courtesy of Acorn Media International. Grab your sweet buckets and press play on VHS Halloween for another round of truly disturbing found footage nightmares centered around every horror fiend's favorite time of year.
It would be good. You know what they should do, which would be cool, giving them an idea. It would be if it was like it looked like a VHS, like it was a DVD still, but it looked like a VHS case, and maybe you could open it sideways or whatever, pull it out maybe. But man, that'd be a good. Why has no one done that?
I have a Stranger Things season 1 that they done that with. I got it in a Walmart clever. When I was in the States years ago, and it had like the slip cover, and then when you pull it out, you could open. It looked like a videotape, and when you open the videotape, the Blu-rays are inside.
Yeah, see, that would be cool. I like that idea, right?
And they could sell it to dorks like me.
See, and then what's weird, because I'm starting to slowly figure out, like, I want to set up the studio upstairs, and the wife is like, you have too many things. I need a book tree. I have so many books, and they're like in storage right now, and whatever. And I want to like set up all this stuff. And I was like thinking about, she's like, you could put like a TV up there, or whatever. We have an extra TV. And I was like, well, that'd be cool. And she's like, but you want clutter, because I want all my shit behind me, kind of like you, but just the collection of my things and stuff that I've collected over the years.
Yeah, I feel like I need to. What I want to do with this wall behind me is I would like to shelve the entire thing, because I'm going to get rid of some of the stuff here. And I want to start putting some of my books and things like that. Books have become a big thing for me in the last few years. I feel like over time, and probably stuff we talk about on your show as well, where I collect a lot of books because I figure, and it's the same as me with DVDs, with like, with like commentary tracks and stuff, because at a certain point, right, the information you'll be able to get on the internet will be whatever information they want to allow you to have.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I have these physical books with this information and with this history in it, then nobody can turn it off someday when I wake up and click on Netflix, and they can't just turn it off and be like, well, that's not the version you get.
Oh, yeah. It's already kind of happening. Just to not get
it does, yeah.
tangent.
It does. I remember someone telling me that years ago.
Yeah, well, they the 1984 they distribute now is not the original book. Like if they do it in classes and stuff. So, and that is just literally pointing George Orwell. Like that's just you're just proving his point, because his last statement, well, before he kind of died, was like, if you want to picture the future, picture a boot stomping on a human face forever. If we don't stop it. How crazy is
that, though?
Yeah.
How crazy is that? Okay, so let's get into today's movie, which is a 1990 horror mystery movie known as Jacob's Ladder.
Oh, wait, yeah, I was going to say why I mentioned that is like, I was like, I think this would be so cool to have like a whatever they call it, a tube TV or the old TVs. And I was like, I would just collect a bunch of cheap VHSs and like have it in the corner. And I would just like, if I could set the studio where you could see everything and stuff like that, it would just be, I just like that idea.
Have that in the background.
Yeah, it's just so cool, right? Like, and I don't think you could copyright it if it was on mute and you had like,
yeah, I don't think so.
Like, because like it'd be so small, but it's just like I was looking at them and I was like, look, they're like $150.
Isn't it wild how like
need that?
But isn't it wild how like that shit is coming around now? All that stuff we would have had that at one point in time would have been considered complete and utter garbage, has now become like all retro shit that I'm like, wow, it'd be so cool to have that thing that I threw away 10 years ago back again.
I know, because I could have kept it, but you don't think about that at the time. You know what I mean?
That's how I feel. And I'm like, wow, and now I get to spend 10 times the price that it cost in the first place.
Yeah.
Cool.
I guess it's like, it is funny to like, it's something that people throw away is more expensive because nobody sells it now, right? Because you can't get, other than like vintage stores and stuff, you can't really get like, I wonder if one's, I'm going to look that up. Is one on Amazon?
Because like there's tons of stuff that I'm sure we both still have even now that like I feel like I look at it and I'm like, I really probably shouldn't get rid of this, because I know in like 10, 20 years time, I'm probably going to go, fuck, why did I get rid of that thing?
I know, just in case, right? But yeah, this is an interesting movie that you chose. Just in the fact that it's not really a horror movie, is it?
Not necessarily. Like it is, right? So it's like a lot of people consider it a horror movie. I would as well, I guess. But so what I like about it is it's quite a slow movie. Not a massive amount happens. It's more, I'm trying to think of other examples of movies like this as well that I enjoy for different reasons. Doesn't really have anything to do with gore or like kills or murder or anything. It's more the
psychological,
and like the themes behind it. Like when I started to actually look into like the idea of Jacob's Ladder outside of the movie and kind of what it's all based on, and then what the story is supposed to represent, I was like, holy fuck, this is like super like deep levels of kind of thought. It kind of reminds me of when we talked about Together in the last episode. It's like, on surface value, you go, oh, it's a movie about two people that are together and they get like stuck together or something. And then when we started to kind of get into it, like, what does it mean to be together? And, do you lose yourself the more you're together with somebody and all this shit? And it just started to like get my brain going. I was like, this is really interesting. And this is the basis for Silent Hill.
Yeah, which I'm debating. We're going to actually go, because we're going to be let free. And this weekend, we're going to go see a movie. And we're going to see if we can either see Silent Hill or Bone Temple. So it'll be fun to get away and get out to the theaters. And I did tell the wife, I was like, when the new Scream comes out, we're going. Someone's got to babysit because I will be going to see that.
You have to go.
Well, this is interesting too, because I've never seen it. I don't think I did, at least. Is maybe way back in but it doesn't. I've always seen that cover though. Not the one that's behind me, but the one where it's like his face is all like. And it looked kind of scary. And I remember like thinking maybe it was a horror movie. Yeah. It's weird. What is that? Is that from a painting or something?
It is from a painting. It's from a British-Irish painter who has been mentioned in lots of things. Silent Hill, I think some Resident Evil stuff. There's a couple of other movies and things that have taken inspiration. Francis Bacon is his name.
Oh,
there is some stuff we'll talk about him.
So I did a watch along live and then put it on Patreon. I was like, I want to build up some fun Patreon content, whatever. I've never seen this. I was going to do something else, and I was like, I had no time to kind of fit this in within my busy life and schedule. So we did a watch along. I did with Troy, who was in the Army Reserves. So it was interesting, and he took notes and stuff like that, and like remembers the movie. He's seen it at least a couple times, and I've never seen it, so it was interesting going into it. And then he was kind of like coaching me on like, even when we were talking over like what was happening and like and like the meanings behind the film and stuff like that. And it was an interesting conversation. We were both pretty high. He was smoking like on a blunt. Like, and I was like, is that a cigar or a blunt? And he's like, it's a blunt. And I was like, oh, that's fun. So it was interesting to perceive it and to watch it the first time as a watch along. It's always kind of interesting because then I'm like, oh, this. And then at the end, when there's like obviously the big cinematic reveal and the kind of like, it's a twist, like that M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong guy. It's it was good. Like I was like,
this inspired The Sixth Sense.
That's also a good movie. We should cover that.
The twist at the end of that.
I know I make fun of his name, but I actually love most of his movies.
So do I. I think I said this before. My kid, he's not even 12 yet, and I took him to see Trap with
that was great,
Josh Hartnett. And like my kid brings that movie up at least once a week. He's good. Like, oh, Dad, remember my favorite movie ever? Because like, and it's funny now to see like that's like his gateway horror movie is something like that. He's like, wow, And like I kind of laugh because I'm like, when I'm like 50 or 60 and he's my age, he's probably going to tell his kid and be like, when I was young, oh, your granddad brought me to see this movie called Trap. It's real old school.
Yeah. Which is so funny. I remember the first time that I watched the Village.
Yeah.
And my buddy fell asleep across across the seats. It didn't look comfortable, and I was really trying to mac on these chicks. Like he just didn't even care, and I was like, we're like 14. I was like, how do you not?
Cesspool were you in?
How do you not care, man? Look, you know what I mean? Just so funny, and it was just interesting. Interesting nostalgic time. And then I watched that movie again on mushrooms, and it blew my mind because I forgot everything. And I was like, I didn't tell the wife. This is just a funny thing, just because I didn't tell the wife how. I never tell her, like, especially when I was doing it all the time, how high I actually feel. And we were watching it on the Outback, on like a little couch, like on the projector, on like a garage door. And then it was like a kaleidoscope around it, and I was just trying to act normal because I was like tripping balls. And then when the ending happened, it was like, because I haven't seen it in so long, it was like I was having a flashback, like a deja vu. And I was like, oh my God, oh yeah, they're actually like in the modern times. It's just like I was like high as shit, freaking out. Like, oh my God.
He has a lot of good movies. I'm not gonna lie, I love him.
Just like this guy in flashbacks.
But yeah, so Jacob's Ladder is a psychological horror film directed by Adrian Lyne, written by Bruce Joel Rubin, stars Tim Robbins as Jacob Singer, an infantryman whose experiences during his military service in Vietnam result in bizarre hallucinations. I feel the same as you. I was trying to think back to like the first time I saw this, and I've definitely seen it before, but maybe just like bits and pieces on like late night TV or something. But I always remember the cover. I always remember the videotape and that face, and it always used to kind of intrigue me. And I had, like, I think at the time I was that young, I didn't even like read the back to find out what it was about. I used to just see it and be like, that looks fucking freaky and weird and scary.
Tim Robbins does a good job. He's not in Hollywood anymore because he started going against like the war and stuff. Like, I think he was calling out some stuff and they didn't want him there anymore. Because at least from what I heard, his career kind of declined when he like was outspoken against the Iraq war. And he was like in like, is it Tim Robbins? He was in that movie Gridlock. Was that, maybe that's the other guy. That might be another guy. But he was definitely in like a Shawshank Redemption, right?
Let's pull up some of Tim Robbins' most famous movies.
Right, definitely Shawshank Redemption. Okay, his name was Andy Dufresne or whatever the hell.
Howard the Duck, Top Gun, Tape Heads, Twister. Oh yeah, I forgot.
Oh yeah.
Jacob's Ladder, Cadillac Man, Jungle Fever, Shawshank Redemption, Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me.
Actually played the president. When is he in that?
The president in that.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Cradle Will Rock. Let's see, High Fidelity, Mystic River, Anchorman.
That was Tim Roth that's in Gridlock, my bad.
War of the Worlds, Tenacious D, The Pick of Destiny.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yo, he's the homeless guy. That's fucking hilarious. Yo, how did I not know that? That is so funny. That was him where he's like, you have to let me get the pick. And he's like, just a minute, I'm taking a shit. When you know, have you seen that movie, right?
Yeah, I used to love that movie, dude.
So such a like Jack Black's kind of weird, but that
yeah, you're right. So he
funny.
Let's have a look here and see. This is not what this episode is about, like, but let's just mention it now. So let's do it. He made critical statements against Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Leadership Council while introducing Bernie Sanders in 2016.
Interesting. Yeah.
He opposed the 2003 invasion of Iraq, the 15th anniversary. Blah, blah. Let's see. Undermine. Blah, blah, blah. Coaster. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't think Hollywood
2023, he criticized COVID-19 lockdowns, arguing they undermined freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. He added that to his villainous character in a television series Silo, a leader who crushes any dissident or protest with swift violence, was inspired by pro-lockdown
Wow, good
politicians.
for him. That actually makes me like him more. No wonder
Hollywood... Yeah, I feel like he was always one of those guys as well that would be like, this is the thing I like, and I don't give a fuck if it's trendy or not.
And that's what's like the problem, despite, different people we can all have a different opinions. It's fine or whatever. But just like this people in Hollywood, especially, that they just, even if they may not believe it, they just go along with it, because if they don't, they'll ruin their career or whatever. Right. But,
yeah, it sucks.
I'm not gonna get it. I
happens.
was like, I'm not gonna get into anything else because it's the stuff.
Yeah, because we'll just go down.
Yeah, I'm like,
we'll go down that rabbit hole.
I think Hollywood's proven kind of what it is recently. So,
yeah, like I mentioned before, this movie is said to have inspired things like Silent Hill, Requiem for a Dream, Alan Wake.
That movie's fucked, dude. We should cover that sometime.
Yeah.
Requiem for a Dream. Yeah, movie. I remember seeing the first time I watched the movie, I was like blown away and freaked out at the same time.
There's also many more things that you can interpret as influenced by this movie. So the title refers to the biblical story of Jacob's Ladder, or the dream of a meeting place between heaven and earth. The writer perceived the film as a modern interpretation of the liberation through hearing during the intermediate state, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. He began work in 1980, inspired by a nightmare about being trapped in a New York City subway. So I thought this was quite fascinating. I didn't know very much about some of this stuff.
Well, this is the thing of the story of Jacob, like walks away from Aesop or whatever like that, and then.
So there's several different things. So this is based on the teachings of somebody called Richard Rose. Jacob's Ladder is a symbolic map of inner spiritual development. It describes how human beings move from ordinary conflicted living towards deeper awareness and ultimately truth. The ladder does not represent something outside of us. It represents the process of going within. At the lowest level, we live in a constant tension between opposites, good and bad, pleasure and pain, success and failure. Most people spend their entire lives here, identifying fully with the body and personality. We believe we are in control, yet we are constantly reacting, driven by fear, desire, pride, comfort, and survival. Richard Rose describes this level as a state of struggle where we are trapped between opposing forces without perspective. So then you have, like, I suppose they created this chart or whatever, where you have the different things. So you have the umpire. So with introspection, a new perspective appears, what Rose calls the umpire. This is the rational observing mind, the ability to step back and notice our behavioral thoughts and choices. At this stage, we begin to see that our reactions are mechanical and that life is not as controllable as we assumed. The umpire is useful but limited. It often rationalizes, justifies, and protects the ego. It may seek spiritual ideas for comfort or security rather than truths. Still, becoming aware of the umpire is the first rung on Jacob's ladder, a retreat from error rather than addition of wisdom. Then we have intuition. Beyond pure rationality lives intuition, a subtle, non-logical way of knowing something. Intuitive insights often arrive without effort and before thought intervenes. Many people experience intuition briefly but distrust it, allowing the rational mind to override it. As a seeker learns to watch thoughts instead of being swept away by them, intuition becomes clearer. This balance between reason and intuition lifts awareness to a higher level of the mind. And he kind of goes down through all these different like parts of the ladder. Mm-hmm. And then you get to like you have like so at the highest point of Jacob's ladder is the absolute, not a state the mind can grasp, but a realization beyond the mind altogether. Here individuality dissolves, nothing personal survives, what remains is just pure being. Mystics often describe this as death because the ego and personality do not pass through, yet awareness does not end. It expands beyond anything previously imaginable. The core teaching is that Jacob's ladder is not about becoming better, wiser, or more spiritual. It's about removing false identifications. Each rung is a retreat from error, not an acquisition of more knowledge. Truth is revealed not by adding qualities, but by stripping away what is untrue. Without knowing our true source, death remains frightening and mysterious. Jacob's ladder offers a way to confront that mystery directly by turning inwards, observing honestly, and letting go.
Interesting. It is. Yeah, it's a well. That's essentially what a lot of Gnostics and even religious texts claim is what's kind of going to happen, right? You disconnect. You don't take any of these material possessions with you. You only take like memories and stuff, right?
Which is do you like, know? I've been thinking about that more and more over the last like year or two, man. Like when you really break it down.
Yeah. And what are we here for? And like, there's a lot of questions that most people ask themselves, right? Do you know what? Do you know about the biblical version? I was asking you this. Like everyone's like religious I work with. Everyone's either a Christian or Catholic, except for maybe like two guys, maybe one guy, two guys maybe. Some people are more practicing than others. But I asked the buddy in the office. I was like, do you know about Jacob's ladder? And he's like, no. I was like, it's a biblical story. I thought you were a Catholic. You know, I thought you knew your shit or whatever. And then he looked it up and he's like, it's a movie. And I'm like, look up the biblical term, because it's this idea of Jacob traveling to escape his brother Esau's anger. The dream stopped the night. This is funny because Jacob used a stone pillow and dreamed of a ladder or stairway reaching to heaven, stairway to heaven, you know, with angels ascending and descending. The covenant with God stood above the ladder and promised the land to Jacob and his descendants, promising that his offspring would spread in all directions. The promise that God will be with you, watch over him wherever he wants to bring him back to land, ensuring that all of his families on earth will be blessed from him. That's just Google AI. But like it's an interesting story. And I asked this kid, I was like, do you think it's like a metaphor? And he was like, well, a lot of things in the Bible are metaphor. I was like, yes, it is. It's not like a thing supposed to be taken literally. And then I was like, after the flood, right? Moses is the last like living descendants, or him and his children, right? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, so Moses had to have sex with his family, right? And he's like, what? And he's told his kids to go onward and procreate. I'm like, so they're like, okay with incest in the Bible? And he's like, well, no. It's just so funny. And he's like, most of the stories, most of the evil people, like Nimrod, and there's other like characters within the Bible that practice that, and then they're like the evil ones. But I'm like, Moses, it's just funny. If you like I'm not religious, and I don't care if anyone is, and I think if it makes your life better, you know, which it does for a lot of people, and have faith, but it is just funny if you question them. Because a lot of them can't, there's people that can definitely back up their beliefs and stuff like that, but a lot of them are just, like, I just go to church every Sunday. I don't really know what the guy's saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, there's been religion in my life.
Well, you're Irish.
A good bit, but, like, I don't really, like, I wouldn't say I'm religious. People are like, oh, you're atheist. I'm like, I'm not.
Gnostic. Just say you're Gnostic. Say you're Satanist. Yeah, just really scare people.
Fucking anything, I'll be totally honest. Like, I'm actually not anything.
You are a Gnostic, essentially. If you look at the definition of Gnostic, that's kind of what you believe in.
Yeah, so there's just some of like the basics on screen. Director Adrian Lyne, who also people may know him from what was that movie he done before this, and he was like super popular off the back of it.
Aaron, you should know these things. Isn't this part
Fatal
of your
Attraction.
research?
Fatal Attraction.
Yeah.
He won an
that's
Oscar.
that sexy movie, eh?
Yeah, he won an Oscar for Fatal Attraction.
Is that one where she like opens her legs and it's like a famous scene? You get to see her puss. Is that from that movie?
I do remember seeing it, but I haven't seen it for a long, long time.
Is that not the movie where she's like seductively? What's her name? Oh, it's gonna put me Anyways, it's fine.
But yeah, you'll remember him from that. The writer of the movie, Bruce Joel Rubin, had also written movies such as Deadly Friend, which was made in 1986 with Wes Craven. And
never seen it.
his probably, I would say his next most famous one that he wrote, that everybody knows, is Ghost. Patrick Swayze, Demi Moore.
Oh, yeah.
That's the same writer. And he also, this is a really funny progression,
Aaron
right?
loves that movie.
Do you know what's, I've never actually seen it. Do you know what's really funny though? The progression is like, so 1986 he does Deadly Friend with Wes Craven. 1990 he does Ghost. 1990 he does Jacob's Ladder, right? Then we have a couple of other movies. Then 1998 he does Deep Impact, which is like a complete like tonal shift altogether in work.
I don't know if I've ever seen that either.
Then 4 years later he does Stuart Little 2.
I actually like that.
Yeah, same. But like, it's such a hilarious, like the way he's like going between genres like
Weird.
that. Just like completely, like you couldn't get two movies that are more.
Come on,
Imagine
I think
doing
I
a
saw the
double
first
bill.
one in weird.
Jacob's Ladder and Stuart Little too.
Stuart Little too. I think I saw the first one in theaters. Those are like wholesome movies.
Oh, yeah, I like them. I like them.
Yeah.
They remind me of like that movie, The Little Vampire.
Oh, I love that movie. We need to cover that one day.
That's a good one.
I was obsessed with that movie. I actually thought I was a vampire.
Oh, hilarious.
I
But
thought I
yes,
was a werewolf.
so that's hilarious as well. So yeah, the writer, he couldn't sell the script for years, I don't think. And the only places he got interest from were like low budget studios and things like that, like stuff like places like Trauma at the time or whatever. Ridley Scott actually was interested in directing this at one point, and
That'd be a different movie, I feel like.
the reason it never happened, I think, is because no studio were willing to get behind it. Then Deadly Friend got made with Wes Craven, and then off the back of that, because Wes Craven gave this guy a chance and directed one of his scripts, straight away Paramount were like, okay, what else have you got? Okay, we'll buy Jacob's Ladder and we'll buy Ghost. And like both of them, Ghost became massive. Like that was nominated for Academy Awards and everything.
Women
Jacob's
really
Ladder,
like having sex with ghosts. If you
it's a
look it
weird
up,
one.
mostly it's women that believe that they've had sex with ghosts.
I mean, look, whatever floats your boat, I guess.
I got R-worded by a ghost once. I have a story about that. I've told you.
Right. Stay tuned for that, I guess. Yeah, the director said that this movie depicts a man's dying process while he remembers his wife and kids and imagines a life with Jay-Z he never had.
Yeah, that shit's crazy.
It's his memory / imagination mixing together. There's a quote in this movie that I want to read out because I don't know why, but like I watched the movie 2 or 3 times and every time it gave me fucking chills. I was like, that is, when you actually think about the deeper meaning of like life and like what are we here for and what actually happens to us and where do we go? Do we go anywhere? And there's a part in it where the chiropractor dude, which is basically his angel essentially,
weird,
he has a quote that says, "The only thing that burns in hell is the part of you that won't let go of your life, your memories, your attachments. They burn them all away, but they're not punishing you. They're freeing your soul. So if you're frightened of dying and you're holding on, you'll see devils tearing your life away from you. But if you've made your peace, then the devils are really angels, freeing you from this earth."
See, that's a concept interesting. It's just, I feel like we talked about it maybe on the watch along. It's like, because me and Troy were talking about it, and I said that I've always had that theory that like, before you die, if you're like, I'm going to hell, I'm a terrible person, and all that stuff, you're gonna manifest that. I don't think hell is a real thing. I think that it's a manifestation of our minds, and it would suck if we just. I don't believe that because energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transferred into something else. But like this idea, we just died and that's it. We get the dopamine hit of the DMT in our brain. That's where we see all these visions and stuff like that. But I do think that I don't think you'd be trapped there forever from all the stuff I've done for like spiritual readings and researching the afterlife and all that stuff. I do think that there could be a potential where you get stuck in some sort of dark reality until maybe you realize it, which is scary because you think about his visions and stuff like that. I know people that have had a psychic, they went to a psychic or had like past life regressions and they like saw like their like ex or their husband or whatever as a dog, or like they see them like where they don't know they're dead and they're freaking out and thinking and trying to talk to everybody, but they're dead. Like people have seen these visions with a past life regression. So it would be freaky, man. And it's crazy that that's what the movie almost kind of is his like, realistically, if you're just going to go by, we're just dead and that's it, is almost like the last dopamine or the DMT hit to his brain. And then you have all these visions of your life and shit. That's what they say. Like when your life flashes before your eyes, that's like the DMT in your brain releasing.
Yeah. Like there's so many different, like, that's what fascinates me about this movie. The things that people, we all watch the same movie, but everybody seems to take something different from it. And like I tried to write down a certain amount of like different takes on it just so we can kind of go back and forth for a minute or two and see what we think of it. You know, like there's a lot of people that they're kind of saying, well, maybe you live an entire life in your last moments, maybe another life that you thought of living but you never did. You know, things that you wanted to do, ways you wanted to behave, the person you thought you
that would be crazy.
Could have been.
Yeah,
or
and to have
let's
that,
say, yeah, like you mentioned exes and stuff. Let's say there was an ex that you thought should have been your wife or should have been your forever or this or that. And like in those moments, you get to go back and live that entire existence out with them. And it's a way of helping you realize maybe it wasn't the better option. Maybe it helps you resolve whatever fears or unknown anxieties and feelings you had while you were living your life. And it resolves all that before you fucking ascend to wherever you're going to like help you figure your shit out. I thought that was kind of fascinating. I was like, wow, that's crazy.
well, that's an interesting take, right? I've always thought that there could be like, and I'm like, part of me goes between like this could be real and this could not be real. Is the idea of like every decision you make gets split off into a multiverse, so to speak. And then it's like there's a life for like, you know, maybe me and Chelsea never got married. There's a life for, you know, like that I graduated high school on time. You know what I mean? Like it is just interesting to like think about that. But the idea of like dealing with your physical body, maybe like that's an interesting idea. Like your physical mind, your consciousness, outside forces or within, forcing you essentially to see reality from a different view to help you accept that you are dying, right? Because like that's the biggest question of all for everybody is like what lies after this. That's probably one of the biggest questions to ever exist is what happens after we die, other than like what's the meaning of life type of shit, right? So it's like, is that it would be interesting if that what played a part into it is to help you resolve your issues, your things, so you can let go of the physical body. Because there's theories that people that don't let go of the physical get trapped here. Like that's the idea of like if you think about the movie The Conjuring, #2 especially, is the old guy that the one of the spirits doesn't want to leave. You know, eventually we'll talk about it on my show, but this idea of like something that like he's stuck in the material world, so he doesn't want to leave. He's stuck in that house now. It's his house. He lived there for, you know, generations. His family's been there. And it's like, you stay stuck in that reality, you know, because you're like still hooked on to
and
it.
there's like so many different things about that. Like the message of this movie, you know, Jacob holding on to his life and regrets things like his son's death and his soul can't pass into the afterlife. The idea is this a dying dream, some kind of fever dream? Is he stuck in purgatory? Is he having hallucinations? Was he cheating on his wife with Jesse in reality? Is that why his son asked him to come home? Is this whole thing being suffered through guilt? Did he join the army to run away from the guilt of his son dying? You know, they say he died in Vietnam or whatever. Jesse is trying to get him to stay there. So like she represents the part of his mind that's scared. So it's like she wants him to stay, like you said, in that like in between state where like he's kind of trapped.
Yeah,
and
scary.
like because of his desires and his lust for her, that's in his head seen as his demon, if you know what I mean. So he makes her a demon in his mind. He's like, yeah, she's the demon. She's trying to keep me in this fucking in between. I can't live and go back to my own life, but I can't drop this and move forward into the next life because she's kind of dragging me.
And the death of his son and the guilt and stuff, I couldn't imagine like losing a child or anything like that. And it's interesting. Don't trust AI people, because we asked it, like, is Macaulay Culkin in Jacob's Ladder while we were watching it live? And it's like, no, Macaulay Culkin. And then I asked it again and it said no. And then I finally was like, yes, he is. He's definitely in the movie. That's him right there. Or I said, or that is him. Or whatever. I'm like, I said, like, I'm watching the movie right now and he's in it. And it's like, oh, my mistake. That's what people were like. People cannot trust it. We found that out on a movie. We just looked up like basic fun facts, and it literally lied and said like the director was the killer. And it's like,
it irritates me so much the way it does that. Mm-hmm. Someone else had another interesting take that I had seen. So when you have a near-death experience, they feel that, okay, so potentially you're given a choice to fight or to straight up accept your death. Everything we see is how life would have been if we fought to live. Suffering, and then he kind of ties that into the movie. So he's like suffering from the loss of their son. He cheats on his wife with Jesse. Then you've got maybe some PTSD, trauma, flashbacks, mood swings, maybe chemical damage. Maybe that wasn't just a conspiracy. Maybe it was something that he actually went through. Files a lawsuit for what happened to him. Obviously, then the army and stuff get involved and they threaten him.
Yeah, because the drugs that they were giving him, which is a real thing. They like put I'm pretty sure I'm saying this. The CIA put drugs in the waters, acid in the water, in like New York and stuff. This is like real documented cases of them doing this. You know, the Tuskegee experiment. There's
already giving soldiers like fucking heroin and stuff and all the mad stuff.
Yeah, it's so funny. Everyone talks about like the Nazis giving like their soldiers meth, which they're probably doing, but no one. They're like you forget that like they also gave like the soldiers coke, heroin. They used to call the Canadian troops the snow troopers because how much coke they were on and shit.
Which is wild. Like
and they would have literally packs, especially in Vietnam. They would have packs of like drugs, like heroin, coke. And they would get these little, like, there's still like tins you can find at like vintage stores and stuff like that of like, which is crazy, right? But different time, you know? If you listen to Million Billy's episode on the drug binge, like they would give like cocaine and heroin to like mothers and babies that were teething and all sorts of crazy shit. And, you know.
That actually ties into something else in this, right? So in the script originally, it was written it had traditional imagery of demons and hell and stuff like that. And the director was like, I just feel like that's too kind of generic. He was like, that's not the movie I want to make in 1990 or whatever. He was like, I don't really want to make like a long-tailed pitchfork with horns kind of thing. He was like, it's just not for me.
That's not
so
what
he was like, I want to go for something different. So he chose imagery from like things like this, which I'm not sure if you've heard of this before. How would you pronounce that? Thalidomide?
Thalidomide? Weird. I've never heard of this.
So some of the film's disturbing human distortions echo real-world thalidomide
Sure.
birth deformities, which were widely known by the late 20th century. It is a drug prescribed in the late 1950s and early 1960s that caused severe limb deformities when taken during pregnancy. In Jacob's Ladder, similar imagery appears briefly and not as a literal reference, but as a way of evoking unease, bodily instability, and fear of medical experimentation. These visuals connect with the film's broader themes of war, trauma, unethical science, and loss of bodily autonomy.
That's the idea of like when you sign up for as a soldier, right? You're not human anymore. Technically, you're
not really.
And you're not. You lose your identity. You lose any connection, like other than your memories to the. You are a part of the state. Like that's why if they ever go into World War III, they can draft like all the soldiers.
Well, you're an asset. Like you're
even if like my buddy Troy, he's on the reserve. He was part of the reserves, and they sign stuff to like that. That you will have to be called back, but they don't think they will or whatever, right? But they could easily, if there's a war that pops off, like, no, sorry, you signed your soul over to the military. You have to go.
I really get the sentiment, right? And I have to applaud. I'm not knocking anybody because, like, you know, I have to applaud that people want to fight for their country and would do something like that. But it's kind of scary when you think of it from the bigger picture. It's like, you know, they don't really care about you and like just how you're treated when you come back even. So if you manage to survive being mangled in a war zone, you get to come home and have like basically no benefits and lots of problems.
And the government kills you. I was actually just watching a video on this. The amount of soldiers that have killed themselves, it's pretty much one a day in Canada. Since the Afghani war, which we shouldn't even be a part of, right? What happened? They lost. They gave them millions of dollars in fucking military equipment. They killed 4 million Afghanis. Like all that stuff. It's just and there's a lot of like I've talked to military soldiers like Jeremy McKenzie, stuff like that, and like he went to it was a lie. It was a lie, and he's like, and you have to come to grips with that shit. But yeah, in Canada, it's like, and then they sign him up for MAID. The amount of soldiers they're pushing into medical assistance and dying, instead of trying to get them help, they're like, oh, they're a burden on the system. let's just like off it's terrible.
Do you think that that's the main cause, is like not having like the help when they get home, like mentally and stuff?
Yeah, I think they don't give a shit. I think they claim they do, and there's a lot of veterans that are trying to get them help, but a lot of them, like, that is probably one of the most manliest things to do, and the warrior. To be a warrior and go off and defend your nation, that used to be something that was cherished, right? And I talked about this in the show, on my show recently, of like now they've all been captured, so to speak. But like the back in the day, the royal family, not anymore, not in a long time, but the people, the kings, they would lead the armies, right? They would earn their stripes being a king. You know, you would be the person on the front lines with the sword, being like, go that direction, like Napoleon Dynamite, Napoleon Bonaparte. I just have an image of Napoleon Dynamite on a sword, a horse with a sword in his hand. But like some of the stuff, like to analyze this, is true. It's like this was they are brave. Anyone that shits on veterans or whatever, I think is wrong, like, and they would never do that. Those people that are like, you know, make fun of veterans or think they don't deserve anything, or like, well, you guys shouldn't have signed up, and it's like they were doing what they thought was right. They thought they were protecting their nation. You know,
that's the other thing, and like it, you know, and.
Even if it was for lies.
And I'm not saying it isn't, but it's seen as a very honorable thing. Like my granddad was in the army for years. He was in the Congo. He went when there was issues in Cyprus and stuff with like the Turks and the Greeks and all that shit. Like he'd been all over the place, and probably would have stayed in the army, I think, only for he started to have a family and things like that and wanted to be home more. But like it is that thing, you're right as well, like, you know, you think you're doing it from a good place. I didn't realize though, and this is with like literally no knowledge, but look at a POV video of some of those American soldiers. I'll just, like, the example I feel like everyone will relate to is like Iraq or somewhere like that, right? Just look up any POV video from those times when any of those US troops or any kind of troop was in a firefight in Afghanistan or somewhere. And tell me then that you're like, because I think everyone pictures it like Call of Duty. They're like, oh, I got a kill streak in Call of Duty, so I can like go to Afghanistan. I'd be able to do that.
Yeah.
When you're out there and everything looks the same color, and you can't tell a house from a rock from a tree, it all looks the same color. It's the sun is beating down on you. There's no clouds. There's no cover anywhere, and then there's just like gunshots going off everywhere and explosions and shit. I don't think it's as easy as people make out. So I knew somebody, one of my good friends in school years ago, his cousin, she was an American and she was a medic in the army, and she would have been deployed to Afghanistan and stuff like that. And she met her, I don't think they ended up staying together, but she met her like long-term partner at the time through the army. He was just a regular infantry or whatever, foot soldier, but they said they were on they used to take shift work on like a, you know, you're up in like a watchtower or whatever on a base camp. And I remember her saying, she was like, oh, he was like discharged from the army or whatever. And I was like, oh, weird. And I don't know why instantly I was like, oh, he must have done something wrong to be like sent home from whatever. And she was like, no. So it turns out the dude came here to visit with her one time, right? And he got drunk one night. We were in a bar in a hotel, and he got like super drunk. Really nice guy, but I noticed as he got more drunk, things started to turn. I could see his eyes change, and I was like, oh, there's something, what's going on with him? And then he starts to talk about being in the army, and I'm like, this dude has problems. So it turns out that the reason he was sent home from the army is because he was on patrol or watch or whatever one night, and him and a buddy were like up in the watchtower or whatever, and out of nowhere he hears like, Thum! So what the fuck is that? And he turns around and his friend has been shot in the head.
Yeah.
Just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Just shot in the head. And he was like, dude, I don't even know how to like, he was like, to look at like a living person that I've spent like 6 months with and then turn around and be like, oh, you're just dead.
Yeah, a good friend, and he's gone forever.
You're
and
just dead. Like, he was like,
yeah,
it's just such a bizarre.
That's what the soldiers I know, the veterans, like Jeremy, that always brings up. He has pictures of his friends that all died in Kandahar and Afghanistan and stuff like that. And it's just like, you know, they like, and now, you know, it's all for poor boys fight wars for rich men, for oligarchs and the people that are on Jeffrey Epstein's client list. Like, essentially, that's what we're doing, right? That's what they're doing, and It is. It's I watched Ken Burns' 14-hour documentary about Vietnam once, and that Billy would make fun of me because like this is when I had like night shift or whatever, late shift, and I would be like laying in bed, and it would be like on quiet, but Chelsea would be sleeping beside me, and we had a big TV just on the wall. And I'd just be in bed, and Billy would be like just listening to like he's like, "You're doing this, listen to like murder or death," and like. I was like, it's watching them about the Vietnam War. It's so funny because I just lay there at night before bed and watch the documentary about the Vietnam War, and like that had a lot of lies to it too, right? And it's just, this whole thing of us fighting each other over what rich men tell us to do is crazy.
And it's funny because like if you tie it back into this, like obviously they're supposed to be in Vietnam, and like I feel like no matter. I think you could watch this movie 10 times with a different lens each time, and each time convince yourself, okay, right, yeah, they had issues. They were after getting like some sort of chemicals, and they've all started to hallucinate. Then like you could watch it with a completely different lens and be like, okay, something happened in Vietnam, and these are like his dying visions or whatever. Then you could say, well, maybe he was like schizophrenic or something, and he was like doing whatever. Like it's hard to kind of figure out exactly.
The government giving you drugs, man, and then having visions and like scary visuals of is that would be fucking scary. You know what I mean? And as you're like dying, or like even having. Even if he was going through life having these visions beforehand, you know what I mean, and not even knowing it, almost would be fucked, and not knowing that the government gave you this shit. And
yeah, that's the thing, because it's like, is it all like trauma, PTSD, the effects of like the after effects of whatever drugs and shit? Is that what it is? Is he living but thinks that he's in some sort of demonic, like purgatory? And there's nothing actually happening. He's not actually dying or trying to pass into the afterlife, but his mind has convinced him that all this shit's going on. And he's seeing all these weird faces everywhere, and like everyone looks a bit spooky. And even at the start when he gets off the subway and you see that weird like tail thing go up into the guy's jacket.
Oh yeah, I was like reptilian,
And it's and it's a really subtle and quick thing. And I listened to the director talk about that, and he was like, we done that on purpose because we wanted you to question from the start and go, okay, so this is supposed to just look like every day. Maybe there's more going on around me in everyday life than I ever see. Like maybe some of these people, some of these actors that walk past me are not just other regular people going to work or doing something. Maybe there's other stuff going on that we don't allow ourselves to see. And is Jacob actually starting to open his eyes and see that? Or is Jacob mentally fucked and he's just seeing things that are not there? And it's left up to interpretation.
Yeah, that's an interesting because like we don't. It's all up into interpretation, like a lot of cinema is.
Because I'm sure, like, if you said to somebody, "I feel like I had an encounter with a reptilian," So some people will say, "Oh, you're an absolute psycho. You've obviously got like schizophrenia or some psychotic issue," and then other people would go, "Oh, you've also seen it and opened your eyes." So which one is right?
I feel like this Francis Bacon guy probably has some dark shit in his head.
Well, it's by the looks of this. So we have Irish-British painter Francis Bacon is not directly credited in the film, but his influence is strongly felt in its visual language. Bacon's distorted, screaming figures' bodies caught between motion and collapse mirror the film's twitching faces, blurred movement, and fractured human forms. Like Bacon's paintings, Jacob's Ladder presents the human body as an unstable and vulnerable, reflecting inner torment rather than physical reality. The horror comes not from the monsters, but from the mind breaking under fear, guilt, and trauma.
Yeah, this guy's got something going on in his head.
Yeah, like, and he's like,
check it on him.
I want to say that I seen one of his paintings sold like last year, maybe for $39 million.
Wow, that'd be cool.
Which is fucking insane.
I could paint that. I'm not even good at painting.
I was looking at that. I was like, I feel like I can paint this shit. You want to take some of these?
So Bruce Joel Rubin's personal experience. Rubin wrote the script while grieving the death of his brother. The story became a way of exploring death, denial, and letting go. Jacob's suffering mirrors the idea of the soul resisting acceptance of death. It's interesting, which is true. Rubin said that the film is fundamentally about what happens when you don't want to die. I actually was gonna read this. I have the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I haven't finished it. It's not
So
actually
do
that
I.
long. I have to read it. The concepts of Bardu, transitional state between life and death, directly inspired the film's idea that fear creates demons while acceptance reveals angels. Yeah, that's interesting.
And that's the thing, like with the quote from the chiropractor where he's like, where he says, they're not punishing you, they're freeing your soul. So if you're frightened of dying and you're holding on, you'll see devils tearing your life away. But if you've made your peace, then the devils are really angels.
Scary. Jacob's experience reflects PTSD, survivor's guilt, and psychological damage suffered by Vietnam veterans, grounding the horror in real world trauma. Influences include Jungian psychology, like the Jung. He's thinking of Catholic imagery and Eastern spiritual, blending religion with introspective horror. The military drug subplot draws on fears of government experimentation and misuse of mistrust prevalent during the Cold. Yeah, of course, during the Cold War era. Nobody trusted each other. It is so funny that if you study history, they went from aligning with Russia in World War II, and then not long after they turned Russia into an enemy. History is a weird thing, and it is sad that most people kind of just swallow what they're told about it.
Yeah, I feel like more and more people are starting to kind of come to terms with some of that stuff.
Yeah, because they were literally aligned with Stalin and stuff during the war, which I think everyone was kind of evil during that and stuff like that. And Russia killed a lot of people, and were starving people in the Holodomor. And it's just funny that the government was like, "We'll side with these people." And then not these people, but these people are still killing. They're all killing each other, right? And then Russia, not long after, right, became the enemy. Not like literally within what, fucking 10 years, 15 years. After they had alliances, it's just like it's just, and then back and forth, and that's where the whole like the Cold War, because nothing happened, but everyone expected something to happen, right? That those drills you're hiding under your desk and shit.
So yeah, obviously we mentioned Francis Bacon, and they tried to
That's
translate
making me hungry.
that directly into the movie. In the film's demonic entities that appeared as blurred, twisted figures with violently shaking heads. Cinematographer John Lindley used Bacon's style as a blueprint, creating the famous shuddering effect by selectively slowing down the frame rate of certain body parts, a technique that mirrored Bacon's blurred, fragmented forms. So everything you see in this movie was done in camera. Everything.
That's pretty cool, though. It looks cool. I almost wanted more like of the nightmare distortions.
Right? Yeah, right. So that's
because there were some cool ones, even at the beginning with the lady.
Yeah, so you have
it was clever. It's cool. It's different.
The aim was to create images that felt like bad drug trips or intense psychological breakdowns, a visual language deeply rooted in Bacon's expressionistic horror, says the American Society of Cinematographers. And it's funny because in the director's commentary, the director says that test audiences found our first version of Jacob's Ladder extremely overwhelming. So much so that the studio forced me to cut over 20 minutes of all the disturbing scenes, mostly from the final part of the movie. We cut over 22 minutes of disturbing demonic visions.
Yeah, I want to see that cut.
I know. So for years they've been talking about getting a director's cut for this movie, and like he's still, this guy is Adrian Lyne must be in his 80s now at this point. He is 84 years of age, and he still goes to screenings of this movie and does Q&As, and he says, I'm trying so hard to get a director's cut of this thing.
That'd be so cool, man.
All that stuff back.
Because it sounds like it would be...
apparently they shot tons more weird shit.
Yeah, because why... I feel like that would have helped the film. Because there's some weird freaky images in it. And there was parts I was like, oh, that's cool and stuff. There was definitely it is slow at times, it is more of a drama, but it is weird. It's freaky. Sound just how he's tripping out all the time.
And it's I don't know. I feel like the more I think about it, the more I'm like, wouldn't it be such a weird situation to be in though, dude? Imagine you tell somebody, like, it's probably different with our relationship with each other, but like, you know, if I told somebody else I kind of know from work or somewhere, like I keep seeing weird shit and I feel like something's happening to me, like they're probably just going to be like, you need to be like committed to a mental hospital.
Yeah, I know. And then who knows what is the cause of that? Well, if it's the military drugs and you wouldn't even know.
Yeah, it's like, is this guy onto something? Like, like what's going on? Like, is he seeing what's been there all along? Is he having some sort of psychotic breakdown?
Yeah,
Is he
is it like
stuck
they
in
live?
like?
I know. I had a friend that was schizophrenic, and I at a young age, he's the one that taught me how to use the Ouija board and get into the occult, which is probably a stupid idea. But I always thought that maybe he was just perceiving shit that I couldn't see.
Yeah, which is like kind of scary. Um, so we have some of the stuff, I suppose, of what Jacob's experience is going through. So like, um, his visions are his brain trying to make sense of his trauma, memories, fear, guilt, and love collapse into one experience. Time fractures because death doesn't follow normal rules. His Vietnam experience doesn't just haunt him, it defines his final struggle. The conspiracy and drug experiment act as metaphors for betrayal and loss of control. The terrifying figures represent Jacob fighting death. Fear, anger, regret, and denial twist his perceptions. As long as he resists, the world appears hostile and nightmarish. Once Jacob lets go, the demons are revealed as angels. This reflects the film's spiritual philosophy. Fear creates hell, acceptance reveals peace. Jacob's Ladder shows what it feels like to die while desperately trying to stay alive, and how only peace comes when you stop fighting it.
Interesting. And that's a good metaphor because, yeah, we're all like kind of, that's like the
Well,
biggest fear,
we all have a
right?
one-way ticket to somewhere. I don't know where that fucking place is.
At some point, man.
It's deep shit though to think
Yeah.
about. Like I never used to watch movies and look for like the deeper things. And I think the more of these conversations we've had on your show or doing other stuff and we get into conversations, and then I've started to tie a lot of this stuff together. I was like, now I understand why filmmakers are so passionate about certain projects. Like Adrian Lyne, who directed this, was so passionate and still is at 84 years of age about this movie. And I don't think it's because he thinks it's the scariest movie ever, it's the best horror movie ever made. I think it's more the concept and what he created it to mean.
You can definitely tell a movie that actually is cared about and has like passion behind it and a passion project or somewhat like that really cared about the film versus I just feel like a lot of stuff that's coming out now is just pushed for an agenda.
There was a 2019 remake of this. I think.
Saw that.
I interviewed the writer.
I saw the commercial or the poster.
Christ almighty. If you thought this was bad. But I suppose before we start to wrap this up, I just wanted to go through a final few things and see what your thoughts on this are. So, you know, the idea of seeing demons because you haven't come to terms with the mistakes you've made in your life. And a lot of people are like, okay, so did he actually have an affair with Jessie? And is that why he sees her as a demon? He's stuck in a relationship with her because he regrets what he did with her. And he's being tortured by that.
Yeah.
The Christmas party scene, you can see a little bit of it there in the bottom right-hand corner. Was that where he cheated on his wife?
Interesting. That's fucked. Yeah.
The future maybe is a grouping of all his problems in the past, such as his wife and kids, was the heaven that he really wanted all along. Is he reliving all the negative situations from his life in a torturous way? Real life, he cheated at the Christmas party. And then when he goes back, when he's like in the Christmas party, she's kind of like getting fucked or whatever by demons and they're all like being all sexy and weird. The chiropractor tells him it's all perspective on things. Angels and demons are kind of the same thing to a degree, depending on how you're going to look at the outcome. I seen another thing that crops up a good bit with this movie as well, which is maybe I'm dead, and until I come to terms with that, I get to pretend to keep living.
Weird. And that part where I'm like, it's so funny when like things just hit when he's like, I'm not dead. I'm alive. I just hurt my back or whatever, right?
Oh yeah.
I've never seen this, and there's a hip hop artist called Slane. He's like actually a really good artist, and And he has that in his song. I think it's the song "Crazy" or one of the ending of his. It's like a whatever they call it, a prelude or whatever to one of his. And it's like, oh man, it's so funny when you hear something and you're like, oh, that's what that's from. And it's like,
do you know what yeah, do you know what I love about that as well? Where he's like, I'm not dead, I'm alive.
Yeah, it's
blah,
acted
blah.
well too.
And the dude, the guy who's playing like the doctor or whatever is like, and then what are you doing here then?
Yeah, I know. It's actually a trippy scene. And that always, even just hearing it on a song with like a beat in the background, it has like the Clockwork Orange type beat. Like literally it's like taken from the Clockwork Orange thing. And then it's like him saying this stuff and it sends shivers down your spine kind of thing.
And like all that shit, right? And even still now, maybe not as much, but like as a kid, dude, all that kind of hospital shit used to really get to me. The idea of being strapped down and like needles and like white lights and lots of people in scrubs and stuff, that used to really freak me out.
Yeah, me too.
That scene is actually really
quite
good,
freaky. Yeah.
The way that's acted, and just like I can't remember the exact dialogue, but he says something to him about when he says I'm not dead, I'm alive or something, and he says what are you doing here? And then he's like, you've been killed, don't you remember?
Oh yeah, it's trippy.
Yeah, and he's kind of like looking at him, that whole thing like that, and it kind of, I suppose it's the epitome of like trying to tell everyone, like, be like, I'm not crazy, and they're like, well, of course you're crazy.
Yeah, and that's and it would be in that state of mind. It's almost like a dream, right? Like everyone's had, I feel like a dream where it feels so realistic, and you wake up and you think that's happened. I've had that many times, and it's like imagine being in that state of mind, but it's even more physically. You know what I mean? Like you actually feel like you're there. You know.
Which is kind of haunting. And then just like I suppose the entire movie, like its riff on, you know, the human experience, I suppose, like everything. I don't think any of us will get through life without experiencing, you know, guilt, anger, lust, pain, sadness, fear, whether it's by your own hand or by somebody else's. I think we're all going to experience all that stuff.
Yeah,
and then the idea of you need to shed all of those things that are weighing you down in your physical life to be allowed to journey wherever we get to go next, if that's what you believe in.
Yeah, because that's true. Because like, you know, it's weird. It's weird because what it actually happens, we don't know. And it's like, do you have to let go of all these things, and do you need like to have a realization? And like you made that mention of like, is it demons or angels? And like, so if you study demonology and like biblical references to angels, like the seraphim, they're not always like a nice thing. They're like there to protect God's creation essentially. And like the seraphim is like what I think I saw in mushrooms once, is like it's like a fucking thousands of eyes, judgmental eyes looking at you. And the description of the seraphim I saw when I was on mushrooms, and it tripped me out. And I opened my eyes. So I was watching the Woodstock footage, and I was like, man, imagine, speaking about the 60s, like imagine being back then, man. No one likes the Vietnam War. Everyone's doing acid and shit. And I just closed my eyes. I saw 1,000 eyes looking back at me. I was like, nope, no more of that. And it scared the shit out of me. And it's just like interesting how like these depictions of angels are not always necessarily these good ones, like Michael or whatever, or Gabriel. They're like freaky creatures, right? That are maybe that show you your trials and tribulations of life, and you know.
Yeah, it's like, I'll be honest, it's a scary thought because, you know, as, how I feel, without getting too in depth in it now, but like, you know, how I feel right now below the surface, it's a scary thought if this is how it all works. Because if it works like this, I'm going to be fucked, because right now, if I was to die right now, I'm going to end up like Jacob, and I'm going to be seeing all weird fucking twisted faces and guys injecting my forehead and all. That's like the scary part, like,
I know.
And the idea of being stuck in that place. I have two things I wanted to ask you about. I suppose about a grander question, and then just the movie. What is your interpretation of what's happening?
I think it's the drugs. I think he's dying. He's having the DMT sprayed out his brain, but I also think the aspect of the demonic. I think there is a connection, maybe. To the drugs that they gave him in this interpretation of like, what were they doing to these people, you know, in the military and stuff, and how was that affecting them, and these drugs they were taking. And then you think about it, he's probably seeing this whole hallucination through like the DMT dump and shit.
And so, do you think that he's dying in Vietnam, or has he come home and then he's dying after the war, but like he's flashing back and having all these weird visions?
I think he's dying in Vietnam. That's my guess.
Okay, fair enough. That's quite interesting, because I think that's a like a valid argument, and I feel like I've seen probably 5 or 6 like really solid versions of things. So like I just had something pulled up here, like, and you know, there's a lot of people that think he's stuck in like a kind of an in between,
purgatory.
Like purgatory kind of thing, like you mentioned earlier. Then there's a lot of people are like, oh, he's not dead at all. He's suffering all these hallucinations and PTSD and trauma and all, and it's like a living nightmare or a living death. Then other people are like, oh, I think he might have died in Vietnam, like you just said, and he's experiencing it that way. And like, they all kind of make sense to me when I hear someone flesh out their idea. I'm like, wow, that all makes sense. The other question, and I know this is quite a deep question to kind of end all of this on, you don't have to get super in depth or whatever, but what is your belief right now in 2026 of what happens next?
My belief has always been that I think that this is like a school, essentially. Earth is a school, and we are here to learn lessons. And essentially, I do think that everyone gets a pass at some point, right? There's this book I once read called The Law of One, and it said even people that, the evilest people you can think of history, they're here to help push other people towards a certain direction. So all of this is done on purpose, and you need heroes and villains and people to push humanity to the brink of maybe where we're at now, destruction. So we learn from this reality. It's a school, and then when we die, there's because I've talked to psychics, people have gone to psychics that they believe it's legit. I've researched near-death experiences to some extent, and I do think that we're here to learn lessons and to take from it what we can. And I think that there will be people coming back. Like I had this theory about my aunt and uncle. One died of drugs and one died of essentially abuse of alcohol. And I always thought because of their mistakes here, they're going to come back. And they're going to have to learn from their mistakes. And I think that's a possibility, that you might have to do this life over again and try to rectify your mistakes in the past life. Or you get some sort of this idea, you get to get some sort of karma doled onto you from a past life. There's theories of that, or this and then you choose your own destiny, and not entirely, but I think that you choose to come here. I do think that it's a choice from a spiritual level, and that when you go, either there's been theories of people I've talked to that had someone close to them die, such someone loving and caring, and they said that they've ascended now to like a guide, a guardian, so to speak, in the next round, which only good-hearted people get to that level, and essentially like that's what would suck. This whole idea of like a prison planet, essentially that there's that scary idea is that we're living in some sort of prison planet, and our soul is getting trapped here consistently all the time, and that we're going to be trapped here forever. That's very depressing.
That's crazy that you just said that. And I mentioned these people on the last episode, I think, as well. I have a good friend, Rob, who has Monsterful podcast. And 2 episodes ago, I think it was, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, they had an episode called Are We Living on a Prison Planet? And they were talking about that concept. And like, that some people out there believe that like, we're just bound to an eternity of like being stuck on this planet and like living in this existence. And
I actually wrote an episode about that recently.
That's equally as terrifying. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of scary, and it's hard, right? Because I don't know, like there is no real answer. I guess the only thing I could probably suggest for people is to maybe, if you have a belief system or whatever, so long as it's not a harmful thing or something you're trying to push on other people, if that gives you some bit of, I don't know, comfort in like what's to come, I guess, then the only thing I will say is out of the themes and like the concepts that this movie provides, I'm not saying I believe in all this necessarily, but like there is a slight bit of comfort for me when I think about it in this context, in the sense of like, okay, so it's about me having to learn certain things and let go of certain things and try to right my wrongs. And once I do that and I kind of let go of trying to hang on to all that negativity and all that other stuff that I've accrued over however long I live, the idea of those exact same demons that I was seeing are actually the ones trying to help me ascend and go elsewhere, or let me push me out of here into the next thing, rather than dragging me back.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And again, like, I mean, none of us really fucking know. You can say whatever you like, but none of us have any idea. And it always kind of makes me wonder. I've never really, thank God so far, and you know, we're all going to experience it at some point. I haven't had too many people super close to me pass away. But I often wonder what it's going to, this went super deep, but like, I often wonder what it's going to be like when somebody who's really like in my inner circle passes away.
I know.
How I'm going to feel about like the idea of like, okay, so I knew that person and they were here and we existed together and now they're not here. And like, where do I think weird. They are now? Or
and
like,
it's disconnected too a lot of times. Like when my aunt and my uncle both died, it was near around COVID. And this is just a couple of years after my grandparents died. And they're like my mom's brother and sister. I grew up with them. I'm very close to my cousins. The first episode I ever did of the show was with my cousin Dane. And we only could do a half an hour because he just wanted a cigarette so bad. And this is like years and years ago in my grandparents' basement. And it's just like, and them, it was disconnected because we didn't see them. My aunt was going loopy at the end, and she called me one time, and she was like, well, "Where's Nanny? I have to see Nanny." And I was like, "Nanny's been dead." And then Mom's like, "Don't." My mom was like, "She doesn't know, so don't fucking freak her out." And I was like, I didn't know what else to do, so I was like, "Yeah, she's gone, man." Like, and it was just sad to watch, but because we didn't really get to say goodbye. It's just I know she's gone, but it's a weird feeling. And then somebody that Chelsea knew, her dad died or whatever, and we went and saw it for the wake to show, have grieving and kind of be like condolences, and someone that she grew up with, and her dad died all of a sudden, like suddenly or whatever, and she was destroyed, and it was very sad to see. And but they had him on display, and it just looks like a wax figure. And it's like a lot of people deal with that, where it's like to see them dead is kind of acknowledging that this is just a husk that they like existed in, right? But it's weird, right?
Yeah, because I used to think that I would feel like in that situation, I'd be like, I don't want to let this physical thing that I've known to be my friend, parent, grandparent, brother, sister, whatever, that's who they are. I don't want to let this physical thing go in a fucking wooden box in the ground. But then I suppose there's the other side of that, as like you said, this is just like a vessel. This isn't like that's not who they are.
And it looks fake too, because it's like waxy because of the shit that they do to it. And it's just like, it's just accept that they are gone, and it looks freaky, right? It looks, Chelsea used to like work at a funeral home and sweep around the dead bodies. It's like,
do you know,
I don't know if I'd want to see you or Billy like fucking just there, like,
like I don't even know if I could like process that, as in like, no, but you can't, like, there's no way you're actually dead though.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's like, it's not real. Like, you can't actually be dead. Like, that's not possible. Like,
no, that's like
people are just alive.
Yeah, we gotta bring this to a close. But like, one of my good friends growing up, like I was close with him, and then we faded or whatever. But he's just like, well, kid I grew up with. I was right down the street from him. There's so many memories I have with him in school, in elementary school. And he died a couple of years back. Like, he crashed his car, probably like on drugs or drinking or whatever, into a tree. And it's just, there's just sometimes where I'm thinking, it's weird that Brock's not here anymore. It's just a weird thing that he's gone. And there's, we were talking the one day at work, this is years ago, and we were talking about this chick, and then my buddy was like, yeah, she died. And I was like, what? I was like, oh man, I used to have a huge crush on this chick when I was like in high school or whatever. Right? And she's just like dead now or whatever. And I was like, that's just weird to think.
Yeah, that's even a thing.
And like, he's like, and then he's like, yeah, look, here's her obituary. And I'm like, weird. Someone I didn't even know. And there's another person like that too, another friend that she died of a drug overdose. And now her sister lives down the street. And I knew her sister when she was like young, like when I was old. I was like in my teens. She was like 11 or something like that. and like my buddy tried to get with her sister and like these memories, and it's just like, and then just to be especially that young, like in your 20s or 30s especially, and they're just gone. It's just a weird concept. Like even there's another friend I have, one of my best friends growing up, his cousin that, you know, I was friends with him, then I wanted to fight him, and then the second rap I ever wrote was about him because I hated him, so I would write these rhymes about him because he like stole this chick I was into and then wasn't into and then it was back into because he had her and right, and then now he's dead. He died from a drug overdose, and it's just crazy. But like he just doesn't exist anymore. And last time I saw him, he looked homeless, like he just got a drink at Subway, and it's like.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Like, and I think I've mentioned this before on previous episodes and stuff, but I had a really close friend in school, and he doesn't come to school one day, and it's like, oh, okay, and then he doesn't, like, it's like, that's a bit weird, and no one hears from him. It's like strange. And then we get a phone call from his parents, and they're like, oh yeah, he's after YouTube algorithming himself. In the car shed or whatever out the back of the house. Fact. And I'm like that, and like we were like 17 at the time, and like I often think to that, I'm like, you know, for as much as I bitch and I moan and stuff, I'm like, I've lived as old as he was at 17. I've lived that life again in the time he's been dead.
And if anyone feels that way, definitely reach out, because like my buddy, one of my good friends, Luke, he lost a friend that was very close to him through that, like hung himself in the woods. And when my buddy was heavy on drugs and stuff like that, and like not coping well in life, but he would be lighthearted and fun. But there was a time I think he was coming down from drugs, and I was working with him and stuff like that, and he just like broke down and was like, man, I had fucking, you know, it was like just dead in a forest, and he was going off about it and stuff, and he's like, it's obviously fucked with him for years, and he's never really dealt with it, right? So and reach out for help, everybody.
I supposed to bring it to a close. Actually, something I wanted to say. Somebody told me years ago something, and I don't know if it's haunting or it's kind of comforting or not, but they were like, death is only painful for those that are left behind.
It's true. Like when Kevin Smith's mom, the director Kevin Smith, when his mom died and then she got like brought back to life or whatever, now she's been fine, I guess. She said that she's like, she calls him Tiger. I've said this on the show before, whatever. She's like, there's no pain up there, Tiger. She saw herself floating above her body and felt no pain, and then obviously went back into it and stuff. But yeah, I gotta get out of here. So you know, this was an interesting movie. I think it's fairly good, and for what it is, and there's so many avenues you can go down to of thought processes about the film and, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's why I kind of have this movie in high regards. It's not like your big actiony, like super scary. It's more kind of disturbing, and then there's like a really, really deep level of thought required to kind of see what you come up with in your own mind of all the things, because like I had my mind made up one way, and then I heard somebody else's take, and I was like, fuck, now I don't know if I believe this or I believe that. But yeah, to mirror what Tom said, you know, if you do feel like shit, always reach out, always message somebody or let somebody know. And look, that's
and if you're gonna do that, make sure you give a 5-star rating review before you do it. Just kidding.
Don't listen to Tom.
I was kidding, God.
But yeah, that's part of, I suppose, why we do this as well. You know, you feel like there's
exit outlet.
Yeah, well, like there's a level of like doing this stuff for certain reasons, and you know, people might say, oh, monetary, and you want fame and you want to be highly regarded and all this shit, but like there is a very deeper level as well of like, you know, talking about things like this, conspiracies, fucking cryptids, true crime, horror movies, action movies, all that stuff. It's all escapism. So ultimately, I think this is our probably legacy or our version of kind of giving back. And even if it reaches one person that felt like shit today, and now they feel good, and they kind of had a bit of, you know, because I'll often listen to a show or something, and I'm like driving to work, and like it might make me laugh or whatever, and I'm like, oh, okay, you know, things are not as bad. And then I go into work and I feel like shit again, but for that hour, I felt a little bit better.
I know, and if that's the whole point, is we want to be an outlet for people, right? And have them think about things differently and stuff like that. And that's, you know, even with Strange Brew and stuff like that. That's what people that come out and say they really enjoy the show, would love it and appreciate what we do, or oh, we made them laugh, or this episode was hilarious, or this episode made me think about something differently. Like that's kind of all the whole, you know, that's why I like doing this stuff, right? We're not making a ton of money. We're not making even that much money at all. So like this is a lot of it's free, and we spend our time out of our lives divulging information about ourselves, our life, and what we think about things, right? So if it helps somebody, that's awesome then.
Yes, and then you can help us by liking, sharing, rating, reviewing.
Give us 5-star rate and review. Share the show. Tell your friends, your grandma.
Everybody. And hope you guys enjoyed this. Let us know your thoughts on the movie or your thoughts about the concept in general. And yes, hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you again.
Stay horny for horror.